We know that St. Patrick, when he first came back to Ireland to Christianise us, he landed on an island off Skerries, and he would have had to look after and sustain himself. So he came up here to the north and he settled in Strangford Lough. So he would have been influenced by the food that he got around here and what was available. And of course this bread, and he would have had some travelling companions with him. One which we hope to think of, or I like to think of, would have been Bridget.
Yes.
And St. Bridget would have been the great baker.
So basically the flour is our soda bread flour, which to be honest you would get this in.
And this, the grain from around here.
Yes, the grain is actually growing in the fields surrounding here because we have a microclimate here because we're protected by the loch and by the Mourne Mountains. So there are things, a lot of crops and things like our camber spuds and so on will grow here, don't grow anywhere else. And then it's milled in Belfast. So it's great when I can tell Americans this is totally local.
Yeah.
It's just a pity they can't take it with them because they're desperate to take a bag with them, you know.
Yes.
But it has everything in it that you need in terms of raisin agent, and I use it actually for my potato bread as well because it's fantastic quality. So Terry, when I'm making the likes of this, we would call this fruit soda, basically. So I'm going to just kind of go through it now. It takes no time at all to make. So the flour that I'm using, we've talked about that, is that, okay? So I'm taking a good big handful of it, right? And as I would say, if you have dainty little hands, I don't think you have dainty little hands, but get both hands in there and get a big lump of flour. So in it goes into the bowl, no need to sieve it or any of that stuff. And then this is basically, these are my sultanas and raisins. And I'm gonna take a nice kind of smaller handful, but reasonably generous handful, and in it goes, right? And then the last thing I'm gonna put in is a little bit of sweetness. And we all like a little bit of sweetness. So I'm going to put in 2 kind of reasonably generous spoonfuls of sugar there, okay? And then just taking my hand, mixing it all up nicely, and just making sure everything's nicely dispersed. And the raisin agent I don't need to add because it's already in the flour, right? And then to this I'm adding my buttermilk. Now, the way we're doing this is just, as you would know, really gently and going by the look and the texture of it. So I'm not going to kind of work it really hard like I do with the yeast bread. I'm not knocking it back. I'm not doing any of that.
If you overwork it, it gets chewy, doesn't it?
It gets chewy and it won't rise for me. So I'm just literally adding the buttermilk until I am happy with the look of it and the texture of it. So I'm really actually, it's a kind of a sticky, wettish dough, and in fact here's the good thing about it, because I've made it a wee bit too sticky, is it add a bit more flour. So thank goodness for that, because I'd be lost without that. So there it is.
So you go very much on the feel and the texture of it.
We go very much on the feel and texture. That's exactly it. And then when I'm scraping that out, I'm reasonably generous with my flour. So out it goes onto the table, and then scrape it out. And as you can see, it's a kind of it's almost like a porridge nearly, consistency. And then I coat it in a wee bit of flour, get plenty on my hands because it will stick otherwise. And then I am just going to roll this around in my flour. And then I'm literally taking my 2 hands side on, and I'm just tucking them in below. And I'm not kneading it, I'm not working it or knocking it back, that's it. And then feel of the hand. And I don't waste too much time here, because if I do, it'll definitely be sticking to the table. So that's by no manner of means a perfect shape, but we call that rustic. Okay? That's how we get away with it. So I'm then gonna cut it into, now this is a keg of soda bread as it is at the minute, right? And I'm going to cut it into farls. And a farl is, if you look it up, means farlach is 1 4 or a quarter. Okay, so there it is. And I'm separating these 2 bits as I go, just so that they're easier to lift, they don't stick together. And then take my lifter in below, rather than setting it directly on the griddle, I'm kind of just giving it a wee bit of a shake so that I'm taking off any excess flour. And within about 3 minutes, 3 or so minutes, those farls will have risen a third as much again as what they are now, and they're ready to turn. You can really see them there starting to rise already. Yeah. And this would have been done obviously on a griddle over an open fire with a decent heat. And how Banty would have known that that's ready to cook on would have been a sprinkle of flour and those nice sandy colour. To harm the bread is to basically, for 10-15 seconds, is to seal it on all 3 sides.
Ah, right.
So I'm just kind of finishing it off, I suppose, you know. You're not necessarily supposed to colour it really brown, but you're just supposed to kind of finish off, just cook it the whole way through.
Yes.
You know?
And you're just waiting now to slap a load of that lovely farmer's butter on it.
That's exactly.
And what's the jam you have over there?
So the jam I have is my blackcurrant, and then my neighbour Eileen makes rhubarb and ginger, which is amazing. Really nice, isn't it? And it's a lovely consistency and a lovely colour, a lovely deep colour.
I think it adds to it.
That's lovely.